this project for history of building surveying, and everyone will just introduce themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Neshda. I'm trained. I'm studying construction management and economics.
Yeah. Which stream are you doing?
We're doing the same thing.
All
Same,
doing the same thing?
yeah.
Okay, the building surveying and
Quantity surveying.
Quantity surveying.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm EC. I'm also studying the construction management and economics, and we are in the same group.
nice to meet you.
Yes, I'm Tom, and we also study the same stuff.
Yeah.
And probably, yes, in the 5 years.
That's good. So,
Alright, so this is just a consent form which you're supposed to sign. So we've explained here.
so this is a consent form that says, it's okay, it's your group, John, the supervisor, if you're doing surveying. Okay, yes. Thank you.
The participant information sheet is just attached to this as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
We call it a master's research project.
First, yeah. That's for us to Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll be recording this. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
That's
That's
okay.
fine.
Alright, so we'll first start by you introducing yourself and telling us a brief your history in construction and building surveying. So what level you are and your level of experience in building surveying. Yeah.
Okay, so nice to meet you all. So my name is Elias Sorokis. I'm a building surveyor and a private certifier. My background is I graduated from the University of SA and then went on to do a graduate certificate in building and planning sometime later, and spent 23 years in local government and have been a private certifier since 2011, running my own business and qualified. So qualified building surveyor and a registered private certifier.
Okay.
So that's me.
Alright. So you're fairly confident in this area of questions, yeah?
So I've had a general experience through most of these areas.
Okay.
Multi-storey buildings is not something that I have done a lot in the past. So most of my experience is limited to residential, but in terms of commercial, there is exposure to assembly buildings, warehouses, offices, medical centres, that type of thing. So, but in terms of multi-storey accommodation buildings or office buildings, no, that's not me.
Okay.
No.
That's fine. All right, so each one of us was in charge of a separate area and a separate code, so everyone will just take through the questions, yeah.
For the access and the egress part, are you satisfied with the existing NCC provisions for the design of access and egress? And if not, why not?
So what I've done with these questions, I generally they do interrelate a little bit. So I'm hoping that I could just go through some of the dot points that I have in terms of answering your questions, and they should align eventually with all your mostly with all your questions. So my personal view is that generally I think the provisions of access and egress legislation can be quite complex, hierarchy, so which can make compliance paths a little bit difficult to follow. So what that means is that the NCC has provisions which require compliance, and then you have the Development Act has compliance. Then you have the disability access, disability access to premises standards. So it generally, I find that unless you have experience, it can be a bit difficult. But I find that Volume 1, Parts D1, and the provisions of escape D3 are the sort of the areas. So access is the area which relates to people getting in and out of the building equitably, whether they're able-bodied or whether through a wheelchair, and yes, they sometimes they don't align. So generally I find that so access to people with disability can be difficult for new users of the NC to understand how to apply egress requirements that are also satisfy compliant escapes from buildings, so which is what you're talking about. Particularly multi-storey buildings is where I find general ground level, it's okay, you can get in quite easily with ramps, compliant stairs and tactile indicators and throughout the building. But obviously when you get to multi-storey buildings, you have stairs, and the use of lifts are not something you can have as access in the event of emergency. So as you understand, the building code or the NCC principal life objective is life safety, which tends to be the most primarily concern with occupants. So keep in mind that disability is not only just people who are in a wheelchair or wheelchair bound. So there's other type of mobility issues. That could be vision impairment. That could be a limb damage, which they don't necessarily, confined to a wheelchair, but find it difficult to get around. I think these type of impairments are probably more catered for in the building code, because they can to a degree able to exit on their own. Depends on their extent. So you've got handrails on staircases, you've got tactile indicators for people with vision impairment to help them through.
Mhm.
So I think there's a bit of, I think the people who are wheelchair bound tend to get obviously more difficult to get them out of the building if they have an emergency.
Yeah.
But in saying that, there are other emergency response people like the fire service who have a plan of action to get people removed from multi-storey buildings, as you know, via different means. So, although not directly related in the building code, it's there, but definitely that provision for wheelchair bound is something difficult, and I'm probably not sure that how they would deal with that in the future. I don't think it would be integrated in some way that without a use of a lift. The other option is the use of a accessible chair that's attached to a lift. Whether that's the answer or not, I'd probably not, because it's, although it's an alternative, it's not something I'm mainstream, because I don't know how dignified it is. If everyone else has sort of been able to get out in a way where they're a bit more doing it on their own, where someone has to sit in the chair and do that. So it's, I think that I think so. If we move on to so I'm talking about provisions. I'm just reading your question to make sure I've sort of tried to answer it.
The NCC provision for emergency egress do not cover disabled people, and how should this be dealt with in the future?
Yeah, so again we're back to the NCC is supports, and it does encourage the use of performance-based approaches. So considering that it's just about making sure that the building complies for occupants to get in and out safely. I think you will find that, and what's been happening, I think you'll find in the future that in conjunction with the ABCB, the Building Codes Board, and other professional associated expertise like registered access consultants, even HEROC, like Human Equal Opportunity Rights Commissions, who would provide some input about how that develops in the future. But they seem to have got to a point where everyone else is catered for, but how that deals with people in chairs and wheelchair bound seems like they will continue probably to require access or assistance to get out in event of emergencies in the future.
And do you think refugee rooms help in that? We've been told about refugee rooms in, as being one of the solutions. Do you think that really helps? Is that
rooms?
Refugee rooms
In hospitals,
where they're not creating,
because they cannot move the people from hospital fast, so they will keep them in refugee room. So I don't know actually if it's
we've been told about such rooms existing now in hospitals, and
I don't know about that one.
All right.
Refugee rooms.
That's what they're calling it.
So what's the intention there?
In case of a fire, they can't move some of the people in beds and things like
emergency.
that. So apparently the rooms are fire rated for
I see.
certain. They're built specifically for that. I
Yes.
guess.
So they were like refuge rooms. Okay, so where you can go and you're fully enclosed in a fire-rated top compartment. While, I'd be very. That sort of sounds like a bunker. So there are provisions for that. Bushfires, I haven't heard of those that occurring or proposed in hospitals.
Okay.
I'd feel uncomfortable about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good precedent to go down that path where people are sort of locked in rooms in an event of emergency.
Yeah.
It's always about getting people out to open space. So yeah.
That's true.
Interesting.
Other than this, how do you think the NCC access and egress provisions might develop in the future?
There's certainly support for improving the way access is provided in our buildings. I think they'll still be looking for ways to provide a bit more of an equitable use of buildings, so people they can go into and out of the buildings really much without too much support. So they can do it on their own, so it's dignified and continue to. I think they'll continue to make sure buildings work towards buildings that have areas and access points and openings and rooms that are bigger and allow for more circulation. And so I think that will continue to grow. That's a growing area, and I do also know that that there is future possibility that they will introduce some sort of level of accessibility into the Volume 2 of the Building Code, which is the housing provisions, which are based on probably different levels of access depending on the user's needs. And that seems to be that the building code is talking about that at the moment. I think if that's an indication, I think that will increase the amount of requirements for buildings to have to be accessible. Maybe not at the commercial building accessibility, but there'll be components of that. I think that will require, depending on the people, the mobility of the people. If if they're in a chair, then they'll require more access down corridors and entrance. So I think that there will be further provisions related to that in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, let's turn to the energy efficiency part. And my question is, given the increasing reliance on renewable energy, do you think the NCC energy efficiency provision are fair in every state, especially in South Australia or Tasmania?
I was interested to know, I think I came up with an answer, but I think interested to know why you specifically thought South Australia and Tasmania.
Oh, because this 2 district is more energy efficiency compared with Sydney and Melbourne, and energy efficiency regulate the same stuff in every stage, but it seems low effect on these two stages.
They are regulated. So you've got the NC provisions apply nationally, so it's a national based document. So I was trying to, because we only get I don't really spend any time looking at what happens in the state. So this question I had to do a bit of research to find out whether there are any big differences between South Australia and the rest of the country and Tasmania. But there are state-based variations, and so I think that, I can really talk for South Australia. I didn't see many differences between South Australia and Victoria, because I haven't checked any South Victorian buildings, but well, I would say based on what I've been exposed to in South Australia, I think the provisions seem to be acceptable. There are onerous, they are reasonable in terms of how they apply the building code, and there's opportunities to achieve compliance through different couple of ways. You use the building code, or you can use a software program. to get you 6 stars. So unless yeah, so I think in comparison to how energy efficiency has developed over the years in NCC, they seem to be, well, the industry seems to have adapted okay to it. Yeah.
And next, which aspect of the NCC energy efficiency provision is the most important and why?
Okay. So again, I think about the jobs that we check regularly, and the energy efficient provisions in those as they relate to, let's say, volume 2, which are the housing provisions. Let's just use that as an example. So it really, there's a lot of factors that I see that affect the overall compliance, but it does seem to be that the most important ones that have a major effect on buildings seems to be glazing. So, and that's probably as a result of the building design, depending on which way the building's orientated, and whether there's covered windows like frescoes that tend to affect the energy rating. So in terms of reality, the actual, I think, design is very important, but as elements of material that affect the building are glazing, definitely glazing.
Yes.
And what's the other one I've got? And of course that can contribute to the costs of the building itself, because glazing, quite often they need to incorporate, if they can't amend the design, or they'll either change the size of the window so it affects the building, or they end up putting on comfort glass, very expensive glass, or make that, if in the case where it doesn't achieve because of not enough light, then they have to remove parts of the building or the fresco so they can get more light to the building.
Do you think the greenhouse gas emission case by the builder have declined since the NCC energy efficiency provision was introduced in Australia?
I remember I did when I was working for council, I did the review when it first came in. I think it was around 2000. I think it was 2000. Looking at 2002, around 2003. Looking at what the government was trying to achieve with the reduction of energy emissions, and think about the type of buildings that we used to get back then, and how as a result of energy efficiency provisions coming into the building code have changed the way the industry has developed new materials, like external wall systems, type of material, that insulating materials that sit over roofs, on walls. So I think generally, the industry has contributed to positively to reduce and increase the gas emissions. Whether that has actually resulted in reduction of greenhouse emissions generally through the government, I don't know. Probably not. But I think the industry, the building sector, and as intended to the building code boards, and the building code has contributed positively, I think, in making sure that that has worked to some degree in the building sector.
All right. We'll now move into the fire-resistant codes. After the 2014 La Crosse fire and the 2017 Grenfell fire in London, the ABCB changed the NCC Volume 1 to include non-combustible cladding for Type A and Type B construction.
Yeah.
And the VCAT found the building certifier involved in the La Crosse Tower construction partly responsible. Do you think that will change the way private certifiers or building surveyors make assessments for buildings?
Yeah, I just have to get my glasses, my eyes.
Okay. All right.
So that's a statement. Then you've got
VCAT.
responsible.
Yeah. Do you think that has changed the way private certifiers or building surveyors make assessments?
So the change did occur, yes, it did occur. So it's, from my understanding, that C1.9 really was the amendment was to clarify what I understood to be already the existing provisions of using that type of material on Type A and B buildings.
Yeah.
So Type A and B and the multi-storey buildings, particularly the Type A, but yeah, it extends to Type B if you get some up to even 3-storey buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess I do think that there has been a particular emphasis on and focus on the use of the material.
Mm-hmm.
And I think generally how we all undertake assessments, because as you might have picked up from that case, quite often in the past it was almost like an industry accepted standard that the process of the building surveyor, the fire engineer being involved and coming up with this performance solution, using the material that was already, in terms of registration and certification, it was listed as a certified product.
Yeah.
But what it didn't do is that there's components of that were combustible. So has it changed the way we view things? I think yes, definitely. We are more conservative.
Okay.
And obviously it does depend on what level of building certification you're doing and what sort of previous involvement you had in this type of material. So those who have been doing multi-storey buildings, of course, ACP was a popular material to be used on multi-storey buildings. So, but generally, I believe that, particularly during the current circumstances where there's still things uncertain about how this whole issue is going to develop and play out and be able to be relied upon in the future. So I think probably maybe an example would be until we get to the point where we know exactly how these materials have been using it, and the industry may be saying, well, although there's probably some grounds to use the material, we would be more probably resilient in making sure we're checking the material that's been provided
Yeah.
closely, and ensuring that the certificates are valid for the type of use of the building.
Yeah.
And in particular, I think for all types of type A and B buildings, until it's all resolved, it's possible that we might be taking the view that to limit any uncertainty, that the industry do not use any of the ACP on any buildings
Okay.
of type A and B until we know exactly where it's going. So keep in mind that there is a
It's okay. And do you think there will be a significant change in the cladding systems with the introduction of this change? And particularly, we've had in South Australia, there are a few buildings that have been marked that are non-compliant, multi-story, how do you think they would deal with that? Do they need to remove that? And for the buildings that already have that? Yeah.
Well, I think we're in the midst of these significant changes now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had the updated NCC provisions, and there was also there is still ongoing development and education about, and to building surveyors and industry about how we apply those provisions of the building code, and how they are used, as part of the fire verification method. And that will be important for how we accept different type of materials in the external wall materials in the future, not just only ACP. It'd be other material which we may be taking. We taking the approach that we're very cautious about how we deal with these as part of our assessment in the future. So. In significant changes, we've already seen as part of the registering bodies who are approving and certifying these products that are suitable to be used in various applications, where some of these products that have been previously considered to be satisfactory have been removed from having a certification or a cert mark, which is something that the industry is trying to get through, and all the regulators are trying to make sure that these industry bodies who are undertaking these assessments of this material are doing and considering all the proper components of it. So we're in that midst now, and there's training on how we do that, and there's some suppliers who have done some more research, and they've provided new material. So what I've been able to tell is that the same suppliers or manufacturers who have developed and supplied ACP over the past 25 years, they're looking to provide material that looks the same, but doesn't have any flammable components at all. So it's fully non-combustible, compliant, and meets all the stringent, AS 1530 Part 1 tests. So that's prompted mainly as a result of the ACP. So suppliers are out there, and the manufacturers, they're obviously aware. Well, we like this. This product is good for our business, so we need to adjust to the requirements of the
Yeah.
of the industry for Type A buildings. So
Okay.
this is what they have. It's a bit more expensive,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
but if you want that sort of look, you're going to have to make sure it's compliant. So you
Alright.
and you make sure that it achieves that.
So the ACP would not even pass the new verification system, or would they?
Well, yeah, it's as I said. I mean, at the moment, it's that government body who is involved with looking at the current buildings, the multi-story buildings, or the significant buildings which have been identified in the public buildings in South Australia.
Yeah.
They are really assisting the industry by providing assessing tools to work out whether the buildings are in a. I'm not sure if you've heard it at all. It's called they call it a SALA.
So?
It's a SALA, yeah. So SALA stands for.
The south? No.
Yeah.
The south building? Yeah, no. South Australian Life Safety System?
Yes, it's the South Australian Life Safety Assessment Tool.
Okay.
It assesses the risk of those buildings that contain ACP
Yeah.
currently, and not only those buildings that may want to incorporate ACP.
Yeah.
There's varying types, but some of the cores only have like 7% of glue, which may be okay to be used
Okay.
in some components.
Alright.
But the main aim of this tool is it identifies which buildings are and what sort of risk the buildings are in, and if those that are low or moderate risk, then based on having fire safety systems in place,
Yeah.
they continue to be okay and occupy. So,
Okay.
so whether the question was whether fire engineers are prepared to continue doing verification methods on an ACP of that type,
Yeah.
even though it's minimal and may not comply with 1530 Part 1,
Yeah.
remains to be seen, considering that they were mostly responsible, a higher percentage of responsibility of the lacrosse,
Yeah.
and the next person in line is a building surveyor who has to approve it,
Yeah.
was the next person most responsible.
Yeah.
So, it remains to be seen where
Okay.
that goes.
Alright.
I know our industry body is providing training
Yeah.
on the use of the verification method, which is a new one that's come into the building code,
Yeah.
and C1.9. They'll have, so this is an education, we're still going through that. So whether or not, right in the mix of it, so I think it will show in the next 12 to 18 months
Okay.
how it all washes out in terms of what the approach will be and all the learning from that.
Okay.
Mm.
Alright. And fire protected timber was adopted in 2016. This allows multi-story up to 25 meters effective height use fire protected timber. What do you think the reception has been for this provision?
Still yours?
Yes.
Still yours, yeah, okay. Okay. Well, I think it's positive. What I've been able to see is that I haven't undertaken any assessment on any of those type of buildings myself, but attending presentations and courses prepared by the Building Codes Board and the timber industry itself,
Yeah.
the forestry timber industry,
Yeah.
and their expertise, experts in that area, fire engineers, who have been part of the developing and the compliance component of it to
Yeah.
get that through into the NCC.
Yeah.
you know, there is many means of promotion that is going on, and has been going on since the introduction, through to from class 2s and 3s now to pretty much all building classification.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're promoting, they're making professionals understand how to apply the regulations and the NCC provisions. So, you know, it's out there, and I think they're promoting it wherever they can.
Okay.
And I'm aware that it's currently being used on multi-storey buildings. So it's it's a good alternative, and I think it looks like the construction time is much quicker as well.
Okay. So in your opinion, it's much better than the steel and the concrete, yeah?
I don't know if I'd say it's much better. It's definitely an alternative.
Okay. All right.
An alternative, yes.
Yeah.
The reception's been good.
Okay.
What I can tell.
All right. Because I'd imagine that it's more cost effective, yeah? Or
it is, and they go up really quickly because you know they just deliver on site with cranes, and they're just dropped in. And I've seen multi-storey building floors get done in just 1 hour, like very quickly.
Yeah.
Because you know they're just laying them like dominoes, really.
Oh, okay.
They just clock into like Mikado sets.
All right.
And you know, there's not that intense fixing and connections used for steel beams and pouring of concrete slabs.
Yeah.
Although, you know, you still need a slab in most cases on the first floor. But yeah, in terms of timber, wall frames, beams, floors, seems to be taken off and probably will stay. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Service and equipment. NCC 2019 removed the requirements for fire hydrant poster protection for sprinkler protected building and added alternative protection for fire hydrant poster located between 3.5 meter and 10 meter from the building they protect. In your opinion, why did the APCP make these changes?
I could say I don't have an answer for that. I couldn't find that one. I don't know, where did you find that clause?
It's in.
I mean, it's probably. So we've got E1.3b, a new provision. Protection measures for larger provisions located between 3.5 and 10. I'll have to get back to you on that one. So I'll have to check that one. And obviously it's hard for me because I don't. Boosters. Allow me to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
But I can do the second part.
Okay. For class 2 and 3 buildings, NCC 2019 requires buildings in these classes over 4 stories and under 25 meter effective height to have sprinkler protection system. In your opinion, was there a need for this provision, and will this provide more protections?
So that was really the introduction of low to mid-rise buildings, where they introduced the different types of sprinkler options. So particularly aimed at accommodation buildings. So I think if you consider life safety as a basic point, I think they got there's a couple of different optional type of sprinkler systems which are cost effective.
Yeah.
They're not the complete ordinary type 2118 type sprinkler system. So it allows them to have a sprinkler system which the idea is, and which I think is good, is that it attacks the fire right at the source. So if it's on, particularly on the balcony, if it's on a balcony, you've got a sprinkler, it's going to put that area. The idea is it puts that fire out directly in that spot without having that progress to any parts of the other parts of the building. So I think yes, sprinklers will help in that sense. And obviously the aim is to ensure that the life safety of the occupants. So it does also provide, though you've got the cost of the installation of the sprinkler system, they have provided some concessions. So where you have doors and multi-load bearing walls and shafts and construction using fire protected timber, which allow the reduction of the fire resistant level. So although they, in one section they give you a more cost to a compliance, and so they've reduced it in the other end, and they've seen that that's a more high risk, and it's an active system. It is, although it's a great system, the thing obviously with sprinkler systems, there is a cost of ongoing maintenance costs and for the compliance, and that the building, it has to be there for the life of the building. So they're the other issues that come with installing the sprinkler systems. So, as building surveyors, we tend to be a little bit conservative because we like to see, the best systems placed in the building. If it's sprinkler, I want to see clients say, I want to install a sprinkler because that's the way to achieve compliance, and it's safe. That's what we want. So I think that the NCC has made it quite clear now that you can have the options of those different sprinkler systems, whether it's it's a hydrant or domestic type, water supplied one. I think they're very good and necessary. I'm not sure how the owners would feel about it though. Additional costs involved. Yes.
Alright, and the final question I didn't put here is, what do you think is the future of the NCC? And just the codes themselves.
The
future.
So
generally, what do you think the future of the codes will be? The NCC,
codes. I'm sure that will still be something that we always going to reference, and it's something that we're going to continue to rely heavily on to give us guidance about compliance. So they'll continue to be something that's used. The NCC has grown from one book to 4 now, and you've got a guide. So it will continue to provide, as long as it continues to provide good guidance and clear parts of the building code which help us make decisions clearly. So, and I think generally it does that. So it'll be around for a while, I think.
Okay.
Was there another part to that question?
No, just that. It's just something we've been asking at the end, just what your opinion is.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.